Hi friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Olivia, and if you've never seen my face before, you can consider me your fragrance fairy godmother. Oh, it's finally here, guys. Fall is just around the corner, and as I've said many times on this channel, as much as I love a fruity, fresh fragrance, they're not really my style. So I have been waiting on this moment to bust out my fall fragrances. Anything woody, anything rich, anything deep and sultry is so much more my vibe. And I've had plenty of new fragrances come into my collection that I have been reserving for this very moment. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about some new fragrances in my collection that are going to be perfect for fall. And all of the fragrances in today's video are going to be niche fragrances, but don't worry, I'm going to be coming next week with an affordable fall fragrance recommendation video for those of you working on a budget. So if you are like me and you are a lover of everything fall winter, you are in the right place. So settle in, grab yourself a little drink, little snack, and let's get rolling. First up, we have two new fragrances from the house of Andrea, Maack, called Osmo and Zing. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably already heard me rave about this, but if there is one fragrance house that I like every single fragrance they come out with, it's Andrea Maack. And that is rare because there are plenty of brands that I might like a lot of what they have, but there will be select scents that are just not really my style. But when I tell you, they know what they are doing at the house of Andrea Maack. So let's start off with what I think is going to be the perfect scent to transition us from the hot weather into the cool weather. Zing. And the reason I say that this is going to be the perfect transitional scent is because this is the kind of scent that you can put on when it's hot during the day and then it's cool during the nighttime, because it has a lot of bright, zingy elements in the beginning that will be perfect for hot weather. Because when you first spray it out, you are getting a juicy mandarin orange, you are getting a little bit of spiciness coming from some ginger, and you're getting this cold, refreshing, metallic sort of feel. But then as this sits on the skin, you start to get the note of carrot that's giving it this very beautiful grounded earthiness along with a musk. So this starts to warm up as you wear it. So it starts off tangy and zingy and bright and refreshing, but then it dries down to have an earthy, musky warmth with some patchouli and sandalwood. Sometimes when I see the note of carrot in fragrances, it does scare me a little bit because objectively, I do not enjoy the scent of carrot, but this just adds some earthiness. It's not very vegetal by any means. So if you are a diehard for your citrus fragrances, but you want something that's going to give you a little warmth in the evenings, Zing is going to be your friend. And next is Osmo, and I think that this one would fare very nicely in the transitional period as well, but this one comes off a little bit more fluffy. There's a marine note in the opening, giving this a little bit of freshness, but I don't find this to be super aquatic smelling. This is a beautiful, fluffy, powdery iris scent that doesn't go too far in the baby powder cosmetic area, but instead has a wonderful sweetness in the opening coming from some orange. And then in the dry down, you get this beautiful mossy, musky touch. So this starts off with just the ever slightest hint of an ocean breeze, but it does not overtake, it does not make it too salty or too aquatic. Overall, this is more of a sweet, fluffy floral iris. And when I saw the notes of this, I was a little bit worried because there are plenty of fragrances in my collection that have a jasmine, a pink pepper, an iris. So I thought this was going to be very common smelling, but as I know, the house of Andrea Maack does not do common. So they were able to take simple notes and turn them into a masterpiece. So if you like fluffy floral musky, go with Osmo. And if you like metallic, citrusy, and fresh, go with Zing. And next up is a brand new addition to the house of Akro, and it's called Glow. And this is a vanilla fragrance, but this is a vanilla that is done so right. So in the beginning, we have a little bit of spiciness coming from some pink pepper, but instead of being a super lactonic and creamy vanilla, this takes it into the vanilla amber category, giving giving it a warmth, but a dry, powdery sort of feel. It almost feels a little bit vintage. But then you have a beautiful, smooth, roasted sort of quality coming from some incense. It's warm and dark and rich amber, but it's not too sweet on the vanilla, which I really enjoy. So this feels like a traditional vanillic amber fragrance with a modern twist. And next up is from the brand Neydo, and this is called Wood Haze. And this is going to be for my super duper woody fragrance lovers, because this is a very dry sandalwood that does not go too pickly or too herbal, and it's nicely balanced with a smooth Palo Santo. The dryness of the wood is really offset with a little bit of a resinous sweetness coming from some amyris. And there is a slight hint of saffron in this, giving it that dried hay, ever slightly leathery animalic touch, but overall, this is a very dry wood with some light ambery touches, a soft sweetness in the background, and this is an obsession for me right now. You guys have heard me talk about the Hinoki body cream from Le Labo many times, and this layered over top of it is a dream. So if you want a true dry sandalwood and Palo Santo, Wood Haze is your girl. Now, if you told me at the beginning of my fragrance journey that I would turn into a patchouli gal, I would say that you're crazy, but it's kind of happening. So our next up is a patchouli fragrance, but it is a very well done patchouli from Guerlain called Patchouli Paris. For the longest time, I really resented the fact that so many people always said that I look like I smell like patchouli, because I knew it was meant as a dig, like the dirty hippies that bathe in patchouli oil. I honestly think if I didn't have tattoos, no one would draw that comparison. What if me looks like a patchouli gal? But if this is the kind of patchouli they're talking about? Oh yeah. Oh, I am. And I got this recently, and I already put a little dent in that bad boy. Now, this is not a dry, dusty, scratchy patchouli, but this is a raw, earthy, almost balmy, somewhat damp smelling patchouli. Almost as if you were walking through the forest at midnight after a rainfall, but not that fresh, springtime green sort of feel. No, that like damp, dirty earthiness. Ugh. But this has aldehydes in the beginning, so it does offer a little bit of bright freshness, keeping it from going in that too dirty category, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to smell dirty. There's also a very interesting gritty saltiness coming from an ambergris that makes this last forever. So we have a raw, damp earthiness, we have a gritty saltiness, but we have a freshness from the aldehydes, but then in the base, you have a very smooth, natural, semi-sweet vanilla to offset everything. When I first got this in the mail, I sprayed it on my arm very hesitantly because sometimes patchouli can go weird. But my husband and I have been fancying going on walks when it's like pitch black outside lately, and I just kept sitting there. And sometimes patchouli can almost have a really dark chocolate sort of scent to it. And my husband is not a big fan of patchouli, but when he was smelling it on me, he's like, smells like a really good chocolate bar. And I was like, really? You get chocolate? Oh, okay. But I see where he's coming from. So if you are afraid of patchouli, this one is safe. And if you love patchouli, I know you're gonna be into this. This next one is Long Kiss Goodnight by Chris Collins. And I have gone through sample after sample after sample of this, and I finally have a full-size bottle, and I'm so happy it's coming now before fall. So this is a rose oud fragrance, and I have a lot of rose oud in my collection, but this one is very unique in how it transforms as you wear it. In the beginning, when you first spray this out, you are getting a juicy, fruity tanginess coming from some passion fruit that is super apparent. But then as this warms up onto the skin, you get the most beautiful, gothic, sultry rose that's so womanly and so hot. But the rose does not go potpourri or dusty or vintage because there's a little bit of peony to lift it up. And this is an oud, but this is such a high quality oud because it does not go skanky, it does not go scattle. Rather, it smells like super dark, rich, resinous wood. So it starts off super duper juicy, super fruity, but then it turns into a dark and sultry rose with warm woods and a little bit of vanilla in there. Oh my God, this is hot. I'm so happy to have this in my collection, and the way that I am saving this for the right moment, because this bad boy is a weapon. So let's go back to another fragrance that I think is gonna be a good transitional fragrance, and that is Vanilla Powder by Matiere Premier. So this is actually a vanilla coconut fragrance. And I've bitched about it many, many times that I'm so sick of coconut fragrances, but this is done very unique because this smells like you took the entirety of a natural coconut and you put it in a freeze dryer, and then you ground down the entirety of the coconut, the meat itself along with the husk. And then that's sweetened and richened up with the vanilla, but not a baker's vanilla, not a synthetic vanilla, but a natural, really, really high quality vanilla. As it sits on the skin, it starts to get a little bit of a creamy, milky feel along with a lot of musk. Very musky, but it's so nicely balanced. It never comes off too powdery. It never comes off too milky. It never comes off too sweet. It's like it's hitting all the boxes without diving into their pool. Does that make sense? If you were a fan of the coconut skin body mist from Fleur, this smells like the super duper long lasting, the super artistic rendition of it. If you were to take the same kind of DNA scent profile, less sweet, and you made it really, really niche, you're getting this. But of course I'm debaucherous and I like to layer everything, and the two layered together, oh, very good. And if you are a fan of lipsticky scents, I think you're gonna really like this next one. This is called Academia by Nikkolas Paul. And this is going to be almost a slightly gothic rendition of the Your Skin But Better fragrances. This is going to be good for those of you who love the scent of books in a library. Not to say that it smells like it, but it gives that sort of vibe. You do get a sense of the pages of a book sort of scent coming from a dry cedar in the beginning, and it has a little bit of leather, almost like a leather bound book, but it has a fluffy white musk, it has a lily of the valley, so it does give me this lipsticky sort of feel. So imagine you put on some vintage wine red lipstick and it's raining outside and you went to your library to thumb through a bunch of leather bound books. So it has this warm, familiar, clean, second skin, Your Skin But Better feel, but amplified. So that way it's a little bit more daring, a little bit more interesting. Next up is a scent that I can only describe as a slutty rose fragrance, and that is Dirty Rose by Heretic. Now they already had a Dirty Rose in their collection, but this is specifically the 2024 version, which is different. The original is very rose dominant with some citruses, but this is a very dirty take on rose. Hence the name Dirty Rose. If you like Rose 31 by Le Labo, I think you're gonna really like this, but where this differs is this doesn't go quite as green and herbal as Rose 31, but it has that sneaky little note of cumin. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, cumin smells like body odor, but it smells like body odor after hot romps. Sorry, there's this beautiful spiciness coming from a pink pepper, a nutmeg, but instead of coming off green and slightly herbal, this comes off a little bit more dry and woody and a little bit resinous coming from some elemi. So this is a super full-bodied rose that comes off spicy, a little bit like body odor in the best way possible, with a beautiful dry, earthy base. This one's naughty. Very naughty. So if you like spicy, if you like rose, I think you're gonna really like this one, but you have to like the note of cumin. It is quite prominent. Next up is another rose oud fragrance, and this is Scherzo by Miller Harris. Now this one does actually remind me of Long Kiss Goodnight that I talked about earlier, but this one is going to be a sweeter, slightly more green and fresh take on a rose oud. You still get some fruity tanginess in the beginning coming from some tangerine, but it's not quite as mouth-puckeringly sour as the passion fruit in Long Kiss Goodnight. But this one is going to have a little bit more of a fresh springtime green floral sort of feel. But once that greenness subsides, you do start to get that warm, beautiful rose and oud combination. That's warm and sultry and rich, but not quite as deep as the other. Definitely has a little bit more of a candied sweetness to it. So if you like rose oud, but you want something that's a little bit more of a fresh take, I think you would like this. Next up with another citrus fragrance that I think is going to be really good for the fall time is Spiced Arno by Electimuss. So this is going to start off with a spiced citrus. So you're getting some pink pepper, you're getting a bergamot, a leather, so you have that tangy, spicy quality. But interestingly enough, this has the note of bran, so it's almost going to give this wheat-like texture that can come off a little bit like rice. So it starts off tangy and spicy, but then it starts to go into almost like a starchy sort of scent. That starchy sort of quality is made very fluffy with just a little bit of iris. But then you get a really nice herbal touch coming from some thyme. And then in the base, you have a warm woodiness coming from some oud, you have a vanilla, and you have a deep, warm, resinous myrrh. So this fragrance is not linear whatsoever. You start off citrusy and spicy, then you go into something powdery and wheat-like with a little bit of an herbal component, and then it dries down vanillic and warm and rich and deep. Very complex, very interesting, and I have been waiting to wear this until the cooler weather hits just because of those deeper notes in the base. So this next one might be the one that I am most excited to crack into during the fall time, because once you hear the notes, you'll understand. This is Otimo by Pernoire. This is a sweet, boozy tobacco fragrance. Do I need to say more? Please. This one is heaven. So what's unique about this is in the beginning, you are getting a little bit of cardamom, so you're getting some spiciness, but that's pretty common for a boozy tobacco fragrance. But you're getting the note of quince. So you're getting a fruity sweetness in the beginning that is kind of similar to a less acidic pineapple. So you're getting a spiced fruity rum in the beginning. Then you're getting some dried tobacco leaves sweetened with praline that give it just a little nod into the gourmand direction, but not edible. Not edible. And then in the base you have a warm roasted powdery tonka bean, a vanilla, and a woodiness. Oh my lord have mercy. So if you like dark tobacco scents, but you want something that's a little unique, that has some sweetness, and even a little bit of fruitiness, which is not common, Otimo. This one is crazy. So next up we have Jang, and this is actually from a Korean perfume house called Elorea. And the notes in this are crazy because this has the note of soybean. I don't even know what that's supposed to smell like. I personally don't detect anything legume-esque about this though. What this smells like to me is if you were in a tropical rainforest and there were ylang-ylang flowers, but there was dark, sticky sap from the trees dropping onto the petals, and it's humid and it kind of is drying and sticking to it. So you get this super dense tropical floral scent that's almost a little bit indolic, but I like it in here. And then you get a warm, sticky tree sap resinous sort of quality that's giving this earthiness, it's giving this sweetness, and it is bizarre, but I love it. I'll give you fair warning though, if you are sensitive to indolic white florals, this has a jasmine in it that I could see on some people would read maybe a little bit pissy, but to me it smells like flowers in the end of summer after they're dying down a little bit, so they become super ultra fragrant because they're dying. Super interesting, super bizarre, very fun. And we're gonna end off today with another one that I think is gonna be a great transitional scent where we're at the very end of summer, we still have really hot days, but we have cool nights, and that is Hacivat X. This is going to have elements of summer. You're gonna have a juicy pineapple, you are going to have a sour and acidic lime, but to me this has very robust white florals that can really hold their own. You have a jasmine, you have an orange blossom that feels very round and full-bodied. It doesn't feel sheer like springtime green. No, those are flowers at the end of summer. But you have a lot of earthiness in the base that's going to pull this into what some are going to feel like a more masculine direction. But listen, it smells like a hot dude, and I want to smell like a hot dude. We have a beautiful, dry, earthy vetiver, some patchouli cedar. Now, this is going to be reminiscent of Creed Aventus, but it doesn't have that mossy component, but rather a dry woodiness. So you've got pineapple, you've got lime that give it some juicy tanginess, but then you have some dense florals and a dry earthiness on the base that goes masculine and very, very sexy. So these are the scents that I'm looking really forward to reaching for this fall. I'm curious to hear, do you guys have any scents that you reserve for cooler weather? I'm dying to know what they are because it's my favorite. Put them down below. Like I said, all of the fragrances in today's video are niche fragrances. So they're gonna be a little bit of a higher price point, but if you're looking for something a little bit more affordable, that will be next week's video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna go record next week's video. So I'm probably gonna have the same outfit on. Sorry. So until next Saturday, 10 a.m. PST, you know where to find me. Take care of yourselves, my friends.